Welcome to this month's Blatchford Product Showcase webinar. This month, we're doing something a little bit different. We're talking about the Tectus, and that's Blatchford's first orthotic device available in the US. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is as we go forward, but I just wanted to say welcome. Thanks for being on today's webinar. Before we begin, you can meet the presenters. My name is Mike Magee. I am a Global Education Manager and Senior Prosthetist. And you can scan the QR codes there for our contact information. And we have
David Telford. I'm one of the regional clinical specialists, work with Mike and the rest of the clinical team here at Blatchford.
And thank you. And so you can scan those QR codes to be able to download our contact information. Feel free to email us, call us, or text us anytime you need us. So with that, let's go ahead and move on. Just a reminder, all participants are on mute, and this webinar is being recorded. And that just helps. The recording will be available tomorrow on the website. And use the question answer panel for any questions you have. People are on mute just to make the experience a little bit more enjoyable for everybody. There's no dogs barking or people coming in and out of the rooms. So that just helps everybody. You can always ask questions in the question answer panel. We have Todd O'Hare here, and he's going to be answering questions as we go if you type up any in the question answer panel. You can register for future webinars at blatchfordmobility.com/en-gb/newsletter. And that's going to sign you up for our newsletter and all of our marketing information, but then also it will sign you up for our webinars as they come up. And again, if you have any questions, you can email me at mike.mcgee@blatchfordus.com or david@david.telford@blatchfordus.com. So let's go ahead and get going. And we'll start with David talking a little bit about what the Tectus is.
Thanks, Mike. So with Tectus, Blatchford is going to embrace the next step. And when I say that, I mean for the orthotic realm here in the United States. So what is the Tectus? It's a slim, lightweight microprocessor-controlled custom KFO. This life-changing technology allows people with impaired or lower limb paralysis to regain their mobility, walk in a more normal gait pattern, and really just re-engage in life in whatever situation they are. So the technology or the underpinning of the Tectus. So this technology was originally designed for prosthetics, and we recognize its effectiveness and how well it helped those patients. And we were able to develop it and bring it into the orthotic realm. So we adapted this unique but complex system of spring assist, hydraulics, sensors, and the microprocessor technology to incorporate that into a custom KFO for our patients. And this results in a more natural walking pattern, improved symmetry, improved loading, so the patient is less likely to have those awkward experiences when walking in their normal environment. The idea is just restoring function to the highest level possible for the patient. And when we talk about improved outcomes, with the clinician app, the clinician is going to program the patient's Tectus device, and that's going to be on an Android or an iOS system. Because you're able to program this device, it is going to allow for normal gait patterns, more improved gait patterns, I should say, to increase the outcomes and the function of your patients in the everyday environment. This device is going to have a gait visualizer. So this allows the clinician to analyze the gait data in real time. So when your patient's in the office, you can video them walking, and then you can look at the sensors that are in the device in real time compared to what your patient is encountering in their gait cycle. So this technology, it allows you as a clinician to optimize their gait, optimize their outcomes, and allow them to function at the highest level possible. And then eventually, with these outcomes, it's going to lead to research and it's going to lead to research specifically for the Tectus. And I think we all know as orthotists inherently that we improve the lives of our patients, but this is going to give us some hard data, some hard information to prove that in a very effective manner. The gait visualizer is the first feature in Blatchford's digital health, and there's going to be more aspects of this coming down the road. It's not available right now, but in the near future, and we're excited about these developments as they roll out in the future. So let's get on to what is the Tectus. The Tectus, as I said, it's a custom fabricated KFO with a laminated, that could be a wet lamination or a pre-preg thigh and ankle AFO section. You can see here, this is the knee unit right here on the device. And then above that is the battery section. So one of the unique features of the Tectus is that it has a spring assist. So this unique adjustable knee extension assist allows the patient to help advance their affected limb past their sound side and get it in position for loading on that next step. We have independent hydraulic adjustments for sitting and stair descent. So this unique capability allows you to set a very specific hydraulic resistance for your patients when they go into the sitting position, that way they can sit with comfort, with stability and confidence. And then you can ramp up your resistance for step over step stair descent. As I said before, it's small and compact. It's a modular system in that the battery pack, which is above the knee joint there, can be moved in different locations on the KFO. So if your patient has a unique design requirement, you can accommodate that with that modular system. So who is the Tectus for? Let's get into the requirements. So the patient is going to have a hip flexion strength of 2 on the Oxford scale. And you can see that scale right there in the center of the slide. You will notice on the far right of the slide, this is our Tectus candidate selection tool. And basically it takes these questions on the left side of the slide and gives you a yes/no matrix to go through to determine if your patient is a candidate for the device. And we're going to provide a link to this candidate selection tool later on in the presentation. The user needs to be able to stand independently, and that can be with assisted devices or just completely on their own. As you know, this is a KFO. It's not crossing the hip joint. So your patient that's going to utilize this does need to have hip control. They need to have a less than 10-degree contracture at the hip and knee combined. So your patient could have an 8-degree knee flexion contracture and no hip contracture, and they would be a candidate for the device. Or they could have, a 3-degree contracture at the knee and the hip and still be able to utilize the device. It's for the patient that has flaccid paralysis of the lower extremity, quadriceps weakness, resulting in insufficient knee control and weight bearing, patients with spinal cord injuries, stroke patients, as long as it's mild tone, your post-polio patients, and individuals that weigh less than 100 kilograms, and that is their body weight and carrying weight combined. Again, we're going to send this selection tool out after the presentation. So who is this device not for? Well, it's not for a patient that is unable to initiate hip flexion due to weakness. If they're not able to advance the affected limb, then they are not a candidate for this device. If they have a greater than 10 degrees combined knee and hip flexion contracture, if there is a fixed varus or valgus deformity at the knee of more than 10 degrees, maybe they present with a greater than 10-degree varus deformity, but if it can correct to less than 10 degrees, then they can utilize this orthosis. somebody with compromised trunk control, and then a leg discrepancy of more than 15 centimeters. That's approximately 6.5 inches. So that will just give you an idea of what length could not be accommodated, but that's a significant leg length discrepancy. Somebody with moderate or severe spasticity. So if the patient has spasticity that does not allow them to move through the range of motion, then they are not a candidate for the Tectus. If their weight is over 100 kilograms, and then they are not a candidate. If they do not have sufficient manual dexterity. So there's two ways to control this device. Your patient is required to switch mode some when utilizing the orthosis, and they do that through pressing a button on the knee joint itself. There's an A and B button, and then they could control it with a key fob, and we're going to go into that in more detail when Mike covers the different modes. But if they don't have enough manual dexterity to do that, then they can't utilize the orthosis. If they have poor cognitive function, it's very similar to your patients that you would rule out utilizing a microprocessor knee in prosthetics. If they just cannot handle the decision-making and ability to utilize the technology, then they're not going to be a candidate for that. Or maybe it's somebody that doesn't have good family support to allow them to use this orthosis. And then there's the patient's appearance based, this is an orthosis. They're going to wear this on the outside of their clothes. So if appearance or aesthetics are more important than function, then this is not an orthosis for that patient. So we're going to talk about functions here in a minute. But what I want to do in this slide is give a high-level overview of how and when the Tectus brace is functioning for your patients. So this is a little bit of a busy slide, but I think it's really effective in demonstrating the overall function of the orthosis. There at the top, you have your stance phase and swing phase, and then you have the individual wearing the orthosis in the middle. And then across the middle of this slide, you have the orange and red line, which indicates when the orthosis is active, or the stance resistance, I should say, is active in the gait cycle. So at initial contact, you're going to have stance resistance. The device is providing support for your patient so they can load that affected limb effectively. And then you're going to have some motion with this device. You're going to use a triple action ankle joint. So you're going to have some plantar flexion for stability. And then you're going to have that loading response. So the knee unit is still providing stance resistance at this point. They're bringing their sound side up off of the floor at this point, and the orthosis is supporting them at this moment. Then the patient is going to move into mid stance. Their sound side is moving forward in swing phase. They're putting their weight on the orthosis, and they're doing that with confidence and stability. Again, it's still providing that stance resistance at this moment. Patient travels through terminal stance, still stance resistance in the orthosis as their sound side is nearing initial contact on the sound side. And then in double support or pre-swing is when the device really starts doing its magic. There's a sensor in the thigh section of the knee joint, and it recognizes when the patient meets a predetermined negative thigh angle. And at that moment, that in combination with movement going forward and pressure, the knee will release into flexion. And it does this at a safe point in gait because they are now on their sound side at this moment, and it's releasing at an optimal time in the gait cycle. Then we have extension assist. So a combination of the hydraulic resistance and springs inside the system give a nice controlled heel rise and initiate a forward flexion, or a forward extension with the spring. Again, allowing that patient with the affected limb to get it out in front of them and be in a good position in terminal swing and for ground acceptance on that next step. So at this time, I'm going to have Mike come back to the mic and give us the features of the Tectus.
Thanks, Dave. So let's talk about the key features. First, we have the various modes. There's 5 different user modes. There's a walking mode, a sitting mode, a stairs mode, a lock mode, a free mode. We also have stumble control, which is going to help prevent falls if the patient starts to stumble. We also have a full swing control, including adjustable extension assist, and we have a modular design. And what we mean by that modular design is that we've got a Tectus unit here. And as Dave said earlier, we have a battery module up here. And that battery module can be moved around if we want to put it on the anterior part of the thigh or more distal on the thigh. Wherever we want to put it, we can move that so that it's more comfortable and more slimline for the patient. Selecting activity modes. As I said, there are 5 different user modes, and some of those modes are automatic and some of those modes are manual. If you're going into one of the manual modes, you have to press a button. And you can either press a button on the key fob there for free mode, lock mode, sitting stairs, or walk mode, or you can press a button on the module itself, which are these 2 buttons. So we have an A button here and a B button here, and of course the power button. On top of the module, up here, there's this digital display. And that digital display is used to make sure to identify the mode the user is in for the patient, just to help them know for sure that they're in the right mode. And we're going to talk about why that's so important here in just a couple of minutes, but that's going to just help the user know for sure that they're in the right feedback or right mode. If not only do they have the LCD that shows they're in the right mode, but they also have, they'll hear beeps or some haptic feedback for the user when they start to go into a mode or do what they need to do. It's going to vibrate and tell the user what mode they're in. Let's start off by walking mode. Walking mode is denoted by a picture of a person walking on the LCD screen. So the user can always look down and see that person walking and say, okay, I'm in walk mode. Walk mode has 3 different sub modes. You can either have forward walk, you can have standing, so no walking, or you can have backwards walking. One of those 3 modes, 3 sub modes, is always engaged when you're in walk mode. Forward walk, as David mentioned, is initiated by a -8-degree thigh angle. So what it looks for is a step forward with your good leg, the step forward with your good leg, which leads to a negative thigh angle on the affected side. Once that thigh angle reaches a -8 degrees with a movement forward, then the Tectus unit is going to say, okay, we're in a forward walk, and it's going to release the knee into walk mode. Every step subsequent from that, it's going to go to the defined thigh release angle that you define in the iOS or Android app for programming. We also have standing support, which is going to allow the user to stand nice and comfortable with the knee in full extension. And then we have back step, and that's triggered by a +8-degree thigh angle. So a -8 degree is forward walk, a +8 degree is backwards step. And that's important if you have to walk backwards or do something so that the patient can maintain safety even while walking backwards. Then we have sitting mode. Sitting mode also has 3 substates, but sitting mode must be activated by the user. It's a manual button press mode. You can do that one of 2 ways. As I mentioned earlier, you can press the button on the module itself, or you can press the sit button on the key fob. You can do either one of those to get into sitting mode. Once you're in sitting mode, it's going to have 3 substates. It's got 3 concepts to it: sitting resistance, and that's going to provide a smooth, supportive resistance for sitting. And that's a unique resistance. So remember, we talked about some of these modes are manual modes, and that's a good thing. And this is one of the reasons that's a good thing. We can define the specific resistance that the user needs for sitting, which is different from the resistance that they need for everyday standing and standing support. We have a different resistance, and that's their sitting resistance. And again, it's defined in the app when you program it. And then we have sitting comfort, and that's basically just free motion, so that when you do go to a seated position, if you're, say, in your car for an extended period of time and you want to move your leg around, well, you can, once you sit down, it goes to free mode, and that allows the user to be able to position the leg wherever they need to make it more comfortable for them. Sit to stand is going to lock the knee in flexion as they start to stand. So once the knee gets beyond 50 degrees, coming to a standing position, it's going to ratchet up, if you will. So as they start to stand, it's going to block the knee from flexion. So if they get up a little bit, and then it'll lock to flexion there, so they can push against it to go a little bit further up, and they can keep doing that all the way up, so that it's going to provide them the support. Here's a couple of videos that show this. You can see all he's going to do is press the button right quick, and it's going to be able to give him a resistance control when he is sitting down. And here he is again. He's going to press the button to go into sitting mode. Once he's sitting down, remember, it's going to go into free mode or comfort mode, so that he can position the leg as needed. Once he decides he's ready to get up, all he's got to do is stand up, pause for about a second, let it change gears, let it know that he's now standing, and it's going to automatically go into forward walk whenever he starts walking after he's stood for that 1 second delay. So again, this is important because the user is always able to know that they're in sitting mode. Stairs mode. This is another one. It is a manual mode that the user must enter to go into stairs. Why is that important? Again, we have a different resistance for stairs mode than we do for sitting, than we do for standing support. So when they're going downstairs, we want to know exactly what resistance that particular user needs to descend stairs safely. So that allows us to define that exact resistance. It's also going to make sure that the patient is able to tell they're in stairs mode, because it's got a LCD screen on there that has a picture of the person going down the stairs. You can see it right here. And you can see Alex here. When he gets to the top of the stairs, he's just going to press the button right quick and then descend the stairs. And he can descend those stairs at his own defined resistance. And here he is from an angle. You can see the resistance as he goes down the stairs. Nice and smooth, nice and controlled. Of course, he could also do it in lock mode, where he goes down with maximum resistance, effectively locked out, so that he can get down with no knee flexion if he'd rather go down that way, like he did previous to the Tectus. Going up the ramp or up the stairs, we want to just use lock mode, and that's going to make sure they're in maximum safety going up the stairs. Lock mode. If the user is standing for a long period of time, they can enable lock mode manually to prevent any knee flexion. So you can see all he's going to do here is press the button on the side of the unit. It's going to go to lock mode, and now it's in lock mode, so he can stand and do whatever he needs to do, and the knee's not going to flex on him. It is locked against knee flexion, and it's going to stay active until you turn back on the walk mode. Stumble control. The Tectus is going to reduce the occurrence of falls due to the safety of the device. If a stumble occurs, it's going to detect it by multiple sensors, and it's going to revert to a high yield, which is going to help improve the user's safety over time. We can also vary our speed. If you watch Alex here, when he's walking, when he walks slow, the knee walks or kicks out kind of slow. But when he decides he wants to walk fast, it's going to really kick out there quick for him. Right there, he's going to kick that out quick. And that's because of that extension assist. We can also have a hydraulic heel rise limiter, which is going to limit the amount of hydraulic heel rise and allow the extension assist of the spring to kick in to get the user walking quickly. And again, that's adjustable. This is not adjustable in the app. The extension assist is not adjustable in the app. It's only via adjusting a 5 mil wrench on the spring itself. Sorry, I accidentally clicked out of that. So here you can see she's going to open up the module, take her 5 mil wrench, and just tighten that down a little bit. And that's going to increase the extension assist. There is, you can see right below her finger, there's another little button, not the cap for that extension assist, but there's another little button there. That's called our manual override. If the user's ever in a position where they need to flex the knee, whether they are, maybe they're not even wearing the orthosis, but they want to bend it without having to turn it on. If you push that button, it bypasses the hydraulic unit. So there you can see that button right there. If you just press that, hold it down, you can flex it and it bypasses the hydraulics. The unit comes with 3 different springs. It comes with a soft, a medium, and a firm stiffness for the spring. And the default one is the stiffer spring. So it's going to have maximum extension assist. But of course, you can lighten that up or you can change springs to a lighter spring. Some of the technical specifications. It is as David said earlier, 100 kilo weight limit or 220 pounds. The module itself is pretty light. Of course, it goes onto a carbon fiber KFO. The charge time is about 2 hours, and it takes about 18 hours of continuous use. So the battery lasts a long time. Warranty is about 36 months, 3 years, and it is IP54 rated. So you don't have to worry about going out in the weather with it. You can't submerge it in a swimming pool, but you can certainly walk in the rain and not worry about damage from water. The L code for the Tectus is L2006, and that is the typical microprocessor KFO L code. Let's go through a few of the patient's case studies. First, we'll have Alex. Alex was British military that had a IED explosion, which caused Cauda equina syndrome. He had many years of rehab, and now 10 years on, he still has right lower limb weakness and chronic sciatic pain, hip dysfunction, and lower back pain. Let's see how he walks and what he says. First, he says, I can descend a set of stairs leg over leg, looking just like everyone else, just as fast as anyone else. It's a great feeling. Here's what he looks like without the orthosis. You can see he pretty much just drags the limb behind him as he goes. He has very little muscle control of that leg. And here he is walking at his variable cadence. You can see now without the bars, he's able to get around really, really well. He can walk slow, he can walk fast, he can walk medium. I've been to New York with him, and we walked around the city quite a bit, and he walked just as well as I did, walking all throughout that city. It's really remarkable to see what this orthosis is able to do for him. And here he is descending stairs in his locked KFO. And then with his Tectus unit, you can see how he can just ride the knee down without any problems, no hands. Nice and symmetrical gait pattern coming down the stairs. So now let's look at Alfie. Alfie had a left knee injury and ruptured left Achilles tendon. She had multiple orthopedic surgeries, but unfortunately had unsuccessful outcomes. She has chronic sciatic hip pain from walking and unsymmetrical with a locked KFO. And she presents with left lower limb weakness and tonal pull inwards of her left foot and ankle. She said, when I tried the Tectus, I cried. It was like a revolution. All of a sudden, I had a freedom. It allowed me to do all the things an able-bodied person can do, but with my bit of kit on this leg. So if you want more information about Alfie, you can go to our website and watch a video about her and all of our ambassadors that you'll see today. They tell really great stories about what the Tectus is doing for them. And feel free to share those videos with your patients and anybody that may be interested in the orthosis. But here's what she walks like. You can see the instability there, the tonal pull. She's doing as good as she can, but you can see she's struggling. Now let's put her in the Tectus. Gets around really, really well. Controlled walking pattern, symmetrical walking pattern. Now let's look at Mick. Mick had a stroke affecting his left arm and leg. He had a left arm amputation electively due to an ongoing neurological pain with that arm. Anytime that arm touched anything, it felt like he was being stabbed or having really sharp pains in that arm. And so he elected to have an amputation to prevent that. He has left lower limb weakness, knee hyperextension, and equinovarus pull of the foot and ankle complex with drop foot. And here's what he said: it's given me the confidence to get out and do things again. And here you can watch him walk. You can see the recurvatum that's happening at his knee. And then when you look at it compared to the Tectus, he just walks so much more fluid, and his cadence is faster. He just looks much more comfortable. And lastly, we have John. John is he had polio contracted as a young child with extreme weakness in the left lower limb. He has a 0 muscle power besides power 3 in his hip flexors. He's been in a locked KFO for many, many years, which created significant gait deviations. Here's what he looks like now with his Tectus and without the Tectus. Again, pretty remarkable changes. This was on the first day he received his Tectus, so he's still in the parallel bars, but again, that's his first day with it. All right, so I'm going to let Dave pick up a little bit here on the Tectus process and what it would take if you want to be certified, what our expectations are and requirements to get certified are. Dave, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. So this first slide here is a overview of the entire process if your patient was going to receive a device, a Tectus. Initially, you'll do the assessment, and part of that assessment would be the Tectus classification document or selection tool. Then once you have assessed that the patient is a candidate, we'd move on to authorization. You would get that L2006 code authorized. And then what we would do is we would come into your office and we would present a certification course along with casting. It's about a 4-hour course. The patient that has been pre-authorized or certified would be present. And then we would perform a casting of that patient. The next step in the process is that you would receive back a check KFO, or, similar to your check socket that you would do in prosthetics, making sure that the device fits properly. We would be there for that aspect. And then we would be there for the delivery of the orthosis and walk through the programming of the orthosis. At that point, we highly recommend gait training and physical therapy for your patients to be able to utilize this orthosis the most effective. And then the patient is going to have aftercare at your facility. And with all Blatchford technology and products, our clinical team is there or here to support you through this process. And we're going to be by you side by side, I should say. So casting, how do you cast for a Tectus brace, and how is that different than, say, maybe your standard KFO? Well, you're going to have a casting checklist to help you walk through this process. This will be gone over in detail in the certification course. Our primary objectives in this is going to be at least a 2-stage cast. You're going to first capture your foot and tibia in good alignment. What we want is 10 degrees of anterior inclination of the tibia. You want to control your subtalar joint. You're going to accommodate for the heel height in the patient's shoe with a wedge. You can see, let's see if we can get, let's go back. Sorry about that. You're going to go and you're going to put a 10 to 12 millimeter wedge underneath the patient's heel, because that's typically the heel height that is in most shoes. And you're going to have a 5 to 7 degree toe extension to allow rollover in later stance phase. You can see here on the picture, we did the lower limb cast initially, and then ideally you will have your patient stand so you can complete the thigh section, and you're going to make sure that you're in good alignment. And in this casting process, you're going to make sure that you have your toe out in proper alignment in relationship to your knee axis, to make sure that that's just done correctly. And then here in the middle of the slide, you can see we're going to provide you a proper cast checklist that you can just go through and evaluate your cast to make sure that it's done correctly. After casting, the next step is going to be a check device. So you're going to make sure that the orthosis trim lines are appropriate. Since this is a rigid system, once it's done, you have very little adjustment. Our device, and you can see here that we made you can't necessarily see it on the picture, but there's an indication where the mechanical joint is going to be located, and you can confirm that that is in the correct location compared to the patient's anatomical joint. There's a list of measurements that you have to take when you cast, and one of those measurements is determining your patient's anatomical knee center. And that's a height measurement plus an AP measurement at the knee center. And from that, we'll determine your proper mechanical placement, or the proper placement of the mechanical knee joint. Again, you're going to make sure your trim lines are appropriate. You're going to make sure you don't have any pressure areas. The patient is controlled well in the orthosis. If that is appropriate and it's done well, the next step is going to be finishing the device. So this is a custom-made carbon orthosis, as we said earlier. It has a robust layout. And the reason for that is we want some rigidity in this system, because the knee joint requires rigidity to be able to function appropriately. We have medial follower joints at this time. So here is your Tectus knee joint. This is a follower joint. This is a triple action ankle joint at the lateral aspect on the AFO section, and then a follower joint on the medial side. We're going to provide a checklist or an inspection sheet with the orthosis to make sure that everything is done appropriately. And at this point in the certification course and down the road when you're delivering these on your own, this would be the point in which you would program the Tectus unit. First, you would establish and make sure that the patient's in good alignment, and then you would walk through the programming of the orthosis. Again, let me go back to this just for a moment. The programming will be covered in the certification course in great detail. And then again, as Mike has said, and I have said, Blatchford, we're here to support you. And we're never going to leave you out on your own in doing this technology. So let's go over a couple of common questions that folks may have. Why do we need to use a remote control? Well, as Mike said earlier, you can change modes via buttons on the knee joint itself, or you can use this key fob. It's easy to change mode. It really is quite seamless. And your patient is really going to determine what is better for them. We have some patients that use the Tectus that utilize the buttons on the knee unit itself primarily, and maybe almost to the point of exclusivity. And we have some that use the key fob. So your patient is going to develop a preference, and they will make that selection for themselves. You don't have to pull out a phone and open an app and activate your modes via your phone. It's an easy reach key fob or the buttons right on the device. Why do I have to change modes for stairs and sitting? Mike talked about this some earlier, but with this device, you can set a specific stair resistance against flexion, and you can set a specific resistance for sitting. So your patient can sit comfortably with confidence and stability. And it's just dialed in specifically for them and their activity. If your patient goes and sits down in the sitting position, when they come up out of that sitting position, it is going to automatically go into walk mode. So that's one case where you don't have to switch modes. But if they're going to go downstairs, they go into their stair mode. And that really is a safety issue because their resistance may be unique to them, and they have the confidence that they're in stair mode before descending stairs. What's the weight limit for the Tectus? At this time, the weight limit is 100 kilogram. That's the max load. So that is basically 220 pounds. That's going to be your patient's weight plus a load that they are carrying. So let's go just over the summary briefly. So Tectus, we believe, really is a life-changing technology that's going to allow your patient with impaired function in their lower extremity to regain the maximum function possible. It's the hydraulic controlled knee joint. It's part of this device that, again, just gets your patients back in the game of life, if you will. It has a unique spring assist, enables you to dial that in and adjust it appropriately for their needs. It allows them to advance their affected limb past their sound side and get in a position to accept load on that next step. You have independent hydraulic adjustments. So you can really dial it in for your patient's needs and make that a case where they have confidence in sitting, they have confidence in going downstairs, and it's going to support them in an appropriate way. And again, it is small and compact with the modular battery unit. You can locate that in different positions on the thigh section for your patients. Again, it allows it to accept different shapes and different trim lines that your patient may need. I'm going to turn it over to Mike for closing, but thank you for your time today and appreciate you all attending.
Thanks, Dave. And yeah, I just want to reiterate what Dave just said. Thank you for being on this webinar. Again, there's our contact information. You can reach me, Mike Magee, or David Telford, using those QR codes. That's going to have our contact info. You can also go ahead and sign up for the Tectus webinar. That webinar is going to be available for you. For you to get your credits, you must complete the webinar quiz. If you're watching this on a recording on our website after the fact, keep in mind there are no credits associated with those. That's purely for your own information. So so if you're watching this live, you can do the quiz now. I'll also be sending out an email later today or early tomorrow with the quiz in a link, and I'll give everybody 1 week to complete the quiz before I will submit to ABC. So again, with that, I'd like to close and thank you very much for being here.